You're staring at your phone again. That familiar knot in your stomach is back. Her name's on the screen. And in your mind, the excuses are lining up. Just checking in, just one message, just need some closure. But you're not here to chase ghosts. You're here because something inside you finally broke. And that's a good thing. This isn't just about texting her. It's about the man you become when no one replies. When silence becomes your teacher. When pain becomes a forge, not the prison. If you're a man over 35, rebuilding from the wreckage of love, this message is for you. Because the truth is, you don't need a reply to reclaim your peace. You don't need validation to find your center. What you need is to stop running from the silence. Let's walk into it together. So before your next message becomes your next regret, let's begin where healing really starts. Let's get brutally honest. What you're feeling right now, that anxious pull to reach out, isn't love, it's withdrawal. Your nervous system got used to the high, the dopamine from her texts, the warmth of her voice, the rituals you built together. And now, like any man coming off a drug, you're chasing a fix. It's not because you miss her. It's because you miss how you felt when you had her. You're craving relief, not connection. But here's the trap. Every time you reach for your phone in that state, you're handing your power away. You're telling your body, I can't handle this silence. I need her to make me feel okay. That's not strength. That's dependency disguised as romance. If you're a grown man, hell, a seasoned man, this moment is where you either regress or rise. When you stop chasing comfort and start facing discomfort, something shifts. You stop needing her to answer your pain. You start listening to what your pain is trying to teach you. You realize this has nothing to do with her anymore. It's about your capacity to sit with yourself, with the ache, without needing it to end immediately. That is power. No frantic texts. No midnight spirals. Just stillness, breath, awareness. And when you feel the wave coming, because it will come again, don't fight it. Don't feed it either. Observe it. Ride it. But don't obey it. Because the man who can sit with longing without reacting is the man who will never beg again. This isn't about suppressing your emotions. It's about mastering them. And once you recognize the source of the urge, the next step is reclaiming your control without saying a word. Every time your fingers hover over that keyboard and you stop yourself, that's not weakness, that's control. And control isn't loud. It doesn't beg to be seen. It doesn't announce itself with dramatic silence or performative distance. Control is quiet, intentional, rooted. When you choose not to text her, you're not playing hard to get. You're practicing emotional sovereignty. You're saying, I may feel this storm, but I don't have to act inside it. You see, most men confuse reaction with strength. They think sending that message will ease the tension, win her back, restore the image of who they were together. But that message, that's not from strength. That's from a fracture. It's from the part of you that still fears being alone, still equates a reply with your value, still hasn't made peace with the unknown. But when you don't send it, when you sit with the discomfort, something profound happens. You step back into your frame. And from that frame, calm, masculine, unshaken, you're not reacting to her anymore. You're responding to yourself, to the man you said you become after the storm, the man who doesn't need proof to stand tall, the man who's finally learning that dignity doesn't scream, it doesn't chase, it doesn't reach for someone who walked away. Dignity is the silence that says, I know my worth, whether you reply or not. She will notice. Maybe not right away, but she will. Women feel shifts in masculine energy the same way we feel a storm building before the first drop hits. When your name no longer lights up her screen, when your presence becomes absence, she'll feel it. But that's not why you hold your silence. You hold it because you decided to stop outsourcing your strength. You hold it because you finally realized if her voice is the only one that makes you feel whole, then you were never whole to begin with. Let this silence be your proving ground. Let it carve out the man who doesn't break under pressure, but sharpens because of it. This is your edge now. This is your calm. And this is where the rebuilding begins. Because in that stillness, a message is already being sent without a single keystroke. Most men think silence is the absence of effort, but that's not true. Real silence, the kind that comes from a man who's done chasing, is loud in its own way. It speaks. It signals. It creates space where noise used to live. And women hear that silence more clearly than your longest text thread. When you stop reaching out, something starts shifting. Not just in her, but in you. You're no longer saying, "Please notice me." You're saying, "I know who I am, even in your absence." That's the kind of energy that moves differently. Because here's the truth no one told you. Chasing doesn't bring her closer. It pushes her away. Every text sent from fear tells her you've placed your sense of worth in her hands, that you can't stand strong without her gaze. But silence tells a different story. It says, "I'm not here to be validated. I'm here to be grounded." And grounded men who don't flinch when attention fades, are rare. That silence becomes a mirror. When her phone doesn't light up, when her world no longer includes your voice, she starts to feel the void. The one you used to fill. The one she may have taken for granted. Now it echoes. And maybe, just maybe, she begins to wonder. But this isn't about her reaction. It's not about planting seeds of doubt or playing psychological chess. This is about you. You're not using silence as a tactic. You're using it as a discipline, as a declaration that you no longer bleed your soul into someone else's hands, hoping they'll patch it up. You're showing, without a single word, that your peace is self-sustained, that your value doesn't fluctuate with attention, that even in heartbreak, you refuse to be a man who crumbles. And that's what makes your silence powerful. Not passive, not petty, powerful. Let it stand like a wall, stone, still, sovereign, not to shut her out, but to keep yourself in. Because once you learn to sit in the silence without reaching for someone else to fix it, you've already won. But silence alone isn't enough. You need to choose what kind of man you're becoming inside that silence. There's a war inside you, and it's not about her. It's between the man who reacts and the man who resists. The man who chases noise and the man who commands silence. Desperation is always a louder voice. It begs. It rationalizes. It convinces you that if you just say the right thing, if you just reach out one more time, maybe she'll finally see your worth. But desperation is built on fear. Fear of being forgotten, replaced, left behind. And fear is a terrible compass. Because when you let desperation steer, every message becomes a confession of emotional poverty. You're telling the world and her that your peace is for sale, that your strength is circumstantial, and she can feel that energy, not in what you say, but in how you say it, in the timing, in the tension behind your words. Desperation leaks, and it repels. But discipline is quiet. It doesn't justify itself. It doesn't announce itself. It becomes itself. Discipline says, "I feel this ache, but I won't act from it. I'll let it carve me deeper." You see, real men don't ignore their emotions. They examine them. They master them. They refuse to become slaves to them. That's what separates a man who texts at 2 a.m. because he can't stand the silence from the man who sits with the silence and lets it forge his clarity. You have to ask yourself, what kind of man are you becoming in this moment? Because that's what matters now. Not whether she replies. Not whether she ever sees what she lost. But whether you become the man who doesn't need her to. Discipline builds legacy. Desperation buries it. One creates a man whose presence is respected. The other creates a man whose texts get ignored. This is your line in the sand. Cross it with discipline or circle it with emotion. But know this. Every message you don't send from desperation is a step closer to your power. Every breath you take in stillness is a brick in the fortress you're building. You don't need to be rescued. You need to remember who you are when no one's looking. And once you choose discipline, you'll see why chasing never worked to begin with. Here's the paradox you have to face head on. The more you chase her, the more she pulls away. You think it's because you haven't said the right words. You think if you just explain how much she means to you, she'll see it. She'll return. But that's not how attraction works. Chasing doesn't communicate love. It communicates lack. It tells her that your center, your emotional stability, relies on her approval. And deep down, she feels a weight of that, even if she doesn't say it. Even if she once said she wanted love and attention. What she wants is a man who doesn't need her to be whole. Because when you chase, it stops being about her. It becomes about your fear. And fear wrapped in affection is still fear. You can feel it, can't you? That emotional clutching, the tightness in your chest, the anxious energy behind every just checking in text. It's not connection, it's control. And women are wired to move away from that kind of pressure. Love needs space to breathe. It needs room to grow. And when you're always present, always texting, always reminding her you're still there, you remove the very mystery that builds desire. Think of it like trying to hold water in a clenched fist. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips away. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. It means you stop trying to manufacture closeness. And instead, you create space. Space for her to feel your absence, and space for you to remember who you are without her. That's the only space where true connection is born, not from control, but from choice. You can't make her want you by holding tighter. You can only invite her by standing firm in who you are. And maybe she'll return. Maybe she won't. That's not your job to decide. Your job is to stop chasing what isn't anchored and start building a life so steady, so full, that anyone who enters it feels honored to be there. And if she can't see that, then she was never meant to stay. Let her go, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. Because chasing love is for men who doubt themselves. But you're done doubting. You've got work to do, a man to become. And he doesn't chase. He leads. Letting go isn't giving up, it's becoming. And now, you step into man she can't shake, even when you're not saying a word. You've pulled back. You've stopped chasing. Now comes the shift that most men never reach. You're not just avoiding the text. You're transforming into a man she can't ignore, even in silence. Not because you're trying to manipulate her. Not because you want her to hurt like you did. But because you've chosen a higher path, mastery over emotion, instead of slavery to it. Understand this. Women are not drawn to panic. They're not pulled in by pleading or emotional chaos. That energy may spark curiosity, but it never commands respect. What truly captures attention? A man who is grounded, unshaken, calm in his presence, still in his power. The man who feels deeply, but is led by principle, not by pain. You want to be that kind of man? Picture this. You are a mountain. Storms come. Winds howl. Thunder crashes. And still you remain. Firm. Silent. Immovable. Not because you feel nothing, but because you no longer need your feelings to dictate your behavior. You know who you are, and that knowledge keeps you rooted. This shift isn't about being cold. It's about being centered. Most men crumble at the first sign of distance. They spiral. They beg. They try to prove they're worthy of being chosen. But not you. You've stopped asking to be chosen. You've chosen yourself. And that choice reshapes your energy. You're no longer projecting, please don't leave. You're carrying, I'll be just fine either way. That kind of calm, that kind of internal stillness, it doesn't just change how she sees you. It changes how you see you. You stop being the man who reacts. You start becoming the man who responds, with clarity, with boundaries, with respect for his own soul. And the best part? If she ever looks back, if she ever wonders where the old version of you went, she won't find him. Because that version of you, the one who chased, begged, waited, he's gone, buried beneath the discipline, replaced by a man who leads himself. She may never say it. She may never text it, but she'll feel it. The shift, the difference. The storm passed and the mountain remained. Because now that you become unshakable, it's time to let the silence do what words never could. You've stepped back. You've gone quiet. Now your mind whispers. Will she even notice? Does my silence matter at all? The answer? Only if you let it breathe. You see, a woman can't miss a man who never leaves space to be missed. If your presence is constant, texting, checking in, orbiting her world, she never feels your absence. She never feels the echo of you gone. And here's what most men get wrong. They think attention keeps the connection alive. But connection, like fire, needs oxygen. And sometimes that means stepping away from the flame and letting it burn on its own. Every time you resist the urge to just check in, you're creating that space. Every time you hold your silence instead of sending another message, you're allowing the possibility that she might actually feel what's no longer there. And maybe she will, maybe she won't. That's not your concern anymore. You're not creating distance to provoke her. You're creating distance to protect your own peace. You're not punishing her with your absence. You're proving to yourself that your presence isn't a weapon. It's a gift, and one that should be earned, not assumed. Let her wonder. Let her question the change. Let her feel the contrast between who you used to be, the man who chased, and who you become, the man who leads himself with or without her. This is not emotional warfare. This is emotional self-respect. You're no longer here to remind someone of your worth daily. You're here to build a life where your presence is a privilege, not a pursuit. And if she never reaches back out, good, because it means the silence revealed the truth. You didn't lose her. You simply stopped hiding from what was always there. Her indecision. Let her miss you. Let her feel what she gave up when she thought you'd always be there. But don't wait for it. Let it happen or not. Because either way, you're not reaching out for her approval. You're walking forward for your own freedom. And that is the mark of a man who's moved on without bitterness. But staying silent isn't just a strategy. It's a test of strength, especially when temptation comes calling. Let's not sugarcoat it. Texting her feels good for about 3 seconds. You hit send, and there's that rush, that flicker of hope, that temporary sense of control. It's like taking a deep breath after holding it too long. But then, silence. No reply. Or worse, a reply that leaves you more confused than before. And just like that, you're back where you started, restless, anxious, overthinking everything. The message didn't bring peace. It just bought you a few seconds of relief. That's not love. That's a hit of emotional dopamine. Quick and empty. And if you're not careful, you'll become addicted to that cycle. The checking, the waiting, the craving. You're not reaching out for connection anymore. You're reaching out to escape yourself. But you can't build peace on the back of emotional sugar highs. Because what happens next? The crash, the regret, the shame, the quiet voice saying, I knew better. You see, real masculinity, mature masculinity, doesn't chase comfort. It builds resilience. And resilience is born in the space between impulse and action. That's where your power lives. Every time you feel the urge to message her, and don't, you're retraining your nervous system. You're rewiring your emotional habits. You're breaking the pattern that says, I need her to make me feel whole again. That's not just restraint. That's transformation. You're becoming a man who no longer begs for scraps of affection to regulate his emotions. You're becoming the kind of man who sits with discomfort and lets it sculpt him. It's not easy. In fact, it's brutally hard at first. But that's why most men fail. They choose the short hit of comfort over the long path to strength. But not you. You're choosing the climb over the crutch. You're choosing stillness over scrambling. And in doing so, you're becoming a man who doesn't flinch in the face of silence because he's finally found something stronger than the need be answered. His own center. So next time the urge hits, and it will, pause. Don't act. Don't chase. Just breathe. You're not here for a moment of comfort. You're here for a lifetime of peace. And while the world waits for your next move, you don't wait at all. You build. You've stopped chasing. You've embraced the silence. Now what? Now you build. Because here's the thing most men miss. Silence isn't just about not texting her. It's about what you do with that space. This isn't passive waiting. This is active rebuilding. When your name no longer appears on her screen, let it appear somewhere that matters. On your goals, your health, your purpose. Use the energy you once poured into uncertainty and put it back where it belongs. Into you. Pick up that book you've been meaning to read. Get under the barbell. Start that side hustle. Call your father. Apologize to your son. Fix what you can fix. You spent months or maybe years pouring your identity into someone who may not have seen you clearly. Now's your time to see yourself clearly. And no, this isn't about proving anything to her. This is about keeping a promise to yourself. I will not abandon my growth just because someone else is unsure about me. Let the silence be your sanctuary, not a prison. Because when a man rebuilds himself in silence, brick by brick, day by day, he stops needing to be heard to feel worthy. He becomes a man he respects. And if, in that process, she notices, good. If she doesn't, still good. Because the man you're becoming doesn't build to be seen. He builds because he's done living in the shadows of someone else's attention. He's done outsourcing his worth to another person's approval. And when your days are full again, full of purpose, of clarity, of momentum, you'll look back at a version of you who once obsessed over reply, and you'll feel gratitude, not regret, because that pain woke you up. It reminded you of what you forgot. You were never meant to wait to be chosen. You were meant to choose yourself fully, quietly, relentlessly. So keep going. Keep stacking wins in private. Because the man you're building in the dark, he's going to thank you for not breaking when it hurt the most. And when you build enough to stand on your own 2 feet, that's when you can finally answer the question, should I ever reach out again? Let's get real. After all the silence, the rebuilding, the restraint, you'll still ask yourself, should I ever text her again? The answer? Yes, but only if it comes from a place of wholeness, not need. Not because you're lonely at 11 p.m. Not because you want to test the waters. Not because you need her to make the ache go away. You text, if you do it all, only when you have nothing to prove and nothing to protect. That means you're no longer asking for validation. You're not secretly hoping she'll come back. You're simply speaking from strength, with zero emotional debt attached to the outcome. Because here's the truth most men avoid. If your message is coming from a place of lack, it will carry the scent of desperation. It'll feel heavy. It'll come with hidden expectations, even if your words say otherwise. And when those expectations aren't met, you spiral, you overthink, you regress. But if your message comes from clarity, real clarity, it lands differently. You're not asking her to fix you. You're not waiting for her to make you feel like a man again. You already are one. So ask yourself, before you type a single word, am I reaching out because I need something or because I'm at peace, no matter what she says? If it's not the second, don't send it. Not yet, because if she replies warmly, great. If she doesn't, still great. Either way, you're not shaken, because you've trained for this moment. You've earned your stillness, and you finally understood the core of Stoic masculinity. A man's peace is not determined by another person's response. So yes, you may reach out again someday, but it won't be the old you, the man who needed to be needed. It'll be the new you, the man who chose calm over chaos, discipline over desperation, and truth over temporary comfort. And if she never replies, you'll smile anyway, not because you don't care, but because your dignity never depended on her recognition in the first place. Up next, outro, the final call to strength, purpose, and action. Shall I continue and wrap this with a commanding outro? And now we arrive at the final truth. Not about her, about you. You made it here, not just at the end of this message, but through the storm. And now you stand where most men fall. Because here's what separates the man who heals from the man who just hurts. He doesn't wait for closure. He doesn't chase old answers. He doesn't try to convince anyone to love him again. He simply chooses this. Peace over panic. Discipline over desire. Dignity over desperation. This isn't a story about her anymore. It's about you. The man who sat in silence when it would have been easier to beg. The man who built when it would have been easier to break. The man who didn't just survive the heartbreak. He used it. Because true masculinity doesn't collapse under pain. It expands inside of it. And now, whether she ever reaches out or not, you've already won. Not by getting her back, but by getting yourself back. So if this message hits something deep inside you, don't ignore it. Let it mark the beginning of something permanent. Let it be the last time you ever hand your worth to someone who didn't ask to hold it. Let it be the day you decided that peace, power, and self-respect are not optional. They're your new baseline. And if she ever does come back, you won't be the same man she left. You won't beg for clarity. You won't explain your silence. You'll simply smile with calm, with strength, and keep walking. Because now you don't chase love. You become it. You are love when you're centered. You are power when you're still. You are worth, whether she ever sees it or not. If this message found you in a hard season, say it out loud. I am in control of myself. Type it in the comments. Write it down. Etch it in your mind. Because this is where your old story ends and your new chapter begins. Stay grounded. Stay strong. This is Stoic Horizon.